Okay guys, so we're back here with Drew Dillon at Project Lift, and what I wanted to go over this time is actually how do we brace or how do we set for a lift. We're going to use the squat today as an example. In the article I went over the mechanics and the anatomy of stabilization, and that's going to affect how we really think about actually preparing for a lift. We hear all the time, you know, tighten up your core, just brace up or whatever, and there's not a lot of specifics sometimes about what do we need to be thinking about to get that spine and the pelvis and the rib cage in the right position so that they can work together and generate as much spinal stability as possible. So we're going to talk about really just the process of getting one, as if you're going to do one rep, and then we'll talk about, you know, what do you do with more submaximal loads and you're doing more and more stuff. So we'll get Drew under the bar here. And when he's going to get ready to actually do the lift, you know, he might take just a little bit of a partial breath into here. So before we actually get into this, we'll talk about this here. When he breathes in, we do not want to breathe into the chest first. That's going to arch the back and cause some other issues that we'll talk about in the next column at NSCA Coach. But we want him to actually breathe into the side. So as a coach, you can stand right here and I can feel that my hands are moving out laterally. The only way to have that happen is to get concentric contraction of the diaphragm, so the central tendon moves down towards the pelvis, and that's going to eccentrically activate the abdominal wall. So it's not a concentric drawing in that's pretty common still in the weight room and in the rehab universe. It's an eccentric activation of that abdominal wall. So once he breathes in here, we do not want him to breathe out once he's got the bar on his back, because, go ahead and relax. When he breathes in and activates here, I hear a lot that people want to breathe out to activate the abdominal wall. Now, activating the abdominal wall is important. We're going to talk about it in a second. But when you breathe out, the central tendon of the diaphragm actually goes up. It has to go up for air to leave the lungs. And when the central tendon is high, is elevated, that's the weakest position for the diaphragm. So we want to make sure that the diaphragm central tendon is low, the diaphragm is contracted, and the abdominal wall is contracted, because we're trying to shrink the abdominal cavity, the volume of the abdominal cavity, as much as we can to stabilize for that movement. If we breathe out before we start to lift, or as we lift, we're breathing out, we're actually destabilizing the spine. You may feel more abdominal activity, but we're destabilizing the spine because we're decreasing the pressure in there. Okay? So we're going to get Drew to kind of pop under the weight here. All right, so now he's set. Now before he's going to go lift, let's just pretend this isn't your 1 rep max, is it?
Nope.
Okay, no. So before he's going to breathe in laterally and get that get that abdomen pressurized. And then without breathing out, he's going to get the ribs down, and that's going to really activate this. Now he's set, and he can maintain that as he squats down. So go ahead. Let me go ahead and come back up. And then as he's coming up at the top, he can, expire. You can rack it a little bit. He can expire through pursed lips, or what a lot of people do with really heavy lifts is they'll actually yell a little bit, and that actually is decreasing some of the pressure on the belly, which is okay, because at the bottom of the squat, that's where we have the least mechanical advantage over the load, so the amount of force that we have to generate to overcome the weight is a lot higher. So as we lose mechanical advantage squatting down, we have to make sure that we're braced tight, and then as we come back up, we start gaining better mechanical advantage, and so then we can breathe out through a tight controlled breath at the top. So we'll have him do a couple reps here so you can see. So he's going to do, let's say that he was doing a max set of 3. He's going to do 3 singles basically. He's going to activate, stay braced, he's going to squat, and then as he comes up, he's going to expire at the top, and then he'll reset again. Squat back down, come back up, good. And then one more here, and then come back up, and then go ahead and rack it. So the key points that we want to remember here is, 1, we want to eccentrically activate that abdominal wall because of the pressure in the belly. We want to make sure that we're getting the rib cage down so that the diaphragm is in the best position to generate pressure, That's going to require a lot of abdominal activity. But we want to remember that we do not want to expire all the way out, because yes, that turns the abs on, but that actually elevates the diaphragm. We don't like that for generating pressure in the belly. And then when you're going to do maximal sets of 2s, 3s, maybe even 5s, you want to think about doing 3 singles back to back to back. You do not want to hold your breath for 2, 3 reps. A, you'll pass out. B, you have a really, really elevated blood pressure when you do this Valsalva maneuver. So we want to minimize the amount of time that we're doing that. The other one that you're going to notice, probably automatically you guys are already doing without thinking about it, is if you're going to do a set of 10 squats, and let's say that it's not even at your max, you will be able to breathe in and out while you're squatting, but you might notice that when you get to the bottom, you naturally tense up for a little bit and stop breathing just a little bit in the hole, and then as you come back out, you start breathing again. So again, that is your brain, your subcortex, controlling stability at the points where it needs it. So it's receiving that sensory motor information from your positioning, from the load, and changing your postural stability on the fly without you even thinking about it. But we want to just make sure that we're not just sucking the belly in or arching the back a ton to stabilize like that. We want to use pressure in the belly, and we want to be resetting in between reps. So hopefully that helps. If you want more information on this, Project Lift has videos up on YouTube, also up on the website. And then we will again be at this year's NSCA National Convention talking about stabilization in the Olympic movement. So if you're kind of in on this topic, then maybe swing over to Las Vegas and come check it out.